Good evening on this wonderful June 26th, evening of June 26th. It's Al Rule. I am joined today by Father James, priest in the Anglican tradition, who runs the Barely Protestant channel. But we're not going to be talking about any of that fun theological stuff today. At least we don't plan on it. Who knows what might come up. But our goal today is to do a review of the book Kenobi by John Jackson Miller. Now, this is part of the Legends canon. There's two Disney canons, a Disney canon and Legends, which is the pre-Disney stuff. And I believe this book, Kenobi, was the last or one of the last of the Legends books before they ended that canon. So it's toward the end. And I was just reading this book and I wondered if Father James wanted to do a review with me. So he read the book as well. And Father James, how are you today?
Doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing quite well. So
Good.
it's things are good for me. I'm in a good place right now, which I like. And so we will be talking about this book. I just want to say a couple things about this book. It's the kind of book that if you've only seen the movies, you can pick up this book and start to read. It's not like the New Jedi Order, where you probably have to read 15 or 20 books before you get the full context of what's going on. It's a book, if you've only seen the movies, you can pick up this book and start to read it like that. And of course, the book's called Kenobi, so obviously it is about Obi-Wan Kenobi. And before we talk about the book, I gotta ask Father James, what is your opinion about Obi-Wan Kenobi as a character?
I have never had the sort of infatuation with Kenobi that everyone else has. Um, I like him enough as a character. He would not rank in a top 10 for me at all.
Whoa.
Probably not even in the top 20. He's just sort of there. I prefer Qui-Gon Jinn to Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Interesting. Would you care to elaborate on that?
I don't see why everyone likes him so much, I guess.
Oh,
that like
okay.
I don't understand what the big deal is, I guess.
Okay, well, I'll tell you something I like about Kenobi, and it actually comes out in this book too.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Kenobi is the kind of guy, in my opinion, he's a Jedi, obviously, but he is super loyal. I don't think Kenobi would ever backstab you. Like he
Mhm.
seems like he's very true to his purpose, and he is loyal to the Jedi. And this is going to come up in there, and I think Yoda knew that as well, because if you remember at the end of Revenge of the Sith, where Obi-Wan's about to go into exile on Tatooine, and Yoda's going to go to Dagobah, although I don't think he told anyone that. Well, I guess he told Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan knew, because he was a Force ghost.
He probably knew that because he was a Force ghost, because he
Yeah,
just has going
that's
into
right.
exile. I will go. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you recall, he tells Obi-Wan, when you're on Tatooine, I've got training for you. And I
Hmm.
think the reason Yoda did that, because he knows Obi-Wan's going to watch over Luke. That's a given. But I think the reason he did that, he says, I have training for you, is he knows that Obi-Wan is going to follow through. He's a very loyal. If his master says it, he obeys it. He kind of like what he went from Qui-Gon Jinn. It's like, I gave Qui-Gon my word, He submits to the
Hmm.
authority. Um and so that's something I admire about him. So
Oh
yeah,
no, no,
like
yeah. There's plenty of stuff I admire. Yeah.
he's just not in the top 10 or 20. Well, oh, okay. So,
You there? Sorry,
oh, okay, yeah.
I'm
So,
back.
all right, no, so yeah, okay, Father James, just start and tell us what you thought about this book. I'll explain the premise of the book, unless you wanted to explain kind of
Oh, you can
the
go ahead.
premise. Okay, well, it's not long after the Revenge of the Sith. Um, he's down on Tatooine, obviously. He just keeping his distance, but not too much distance from the Lars family, who's taking care of Luke, who's been kind of like adopted by them, and he gets involved in a local squabble, kind of a territorial, tribal slash mafia squabble, and it's a very
Mhm.
localized story. It has nothing to do with the Galactic Empire or anything like that, or the newly formed
They don't.
alliance.
There's not a scene. Yeah, there's not a single scene out off planet, as I recall.
Yeah, as far as I know, that's correct. It's all to do with the local. So in terms of advancing the story of the few Jedi who survived that are being hunted down, the Empire, the Rebel Alliance. It has nothing to do with that. It just Kenobi on the. In fact, it pretty much barely has anything to do with Luke either, or the Lars family. It's just
There, yeah, they think there are two scenes with Luke sort of mentioned in it. You know,
yeah. It's basically a Kenobi solo arc, like the adventures of Kenobi. It's fan fiction almost, and I guess now it's officially fan fiction now that it's Legends. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the premise of the book. I think Father James would agree with that. What are your first comments on the book, Father James?
it's a um, it's a decent story. I'm not going to say it doesn't feel like Star Wars to me. I'm kind of split on something because it's such a local story that the Galactic Empire or the fall of the Republic, that it feels so detached from the Star Wars universe, which I actually appreciate every now and then. I don't think that all of it has to always be sort of like this epic, complete, like. I mean, it is kind of saving the galaxy because he is kind of protecting Luke through all this, but um, like it is local. It's just like it's a skirmish amongst a few families and Tuscan Raiders and stuff. So it's like I I appreciate that. It felt like a very different Star Wars book than from what I'm accustomed to reading, which it kind of threw me for a loop a little bit, I guess. Um, I the beginning, as you know, the beginning was a bit slow for me, but it picked up about a third of the way through, and I really was wanting to know what happened next after that. Well, I won't go into spoilers yet, but yeah, I really was appreciating more and more of the story, and it was building on the lore of some of the things you find on Tatooine. So, crate dragons, Tuscan Raiders, especially, a little bit of Jabba in there, uh, all that sort of stuff. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I appreciate it. I thought it was a good book.
yeah, no, and a thing that I thought was interesting is that it kind of puts you in the head of Kenobi, because I don't think Kenobi is that much in the expanded universe. I mean, he's in the Clone Wars novels, but
Mhm.
because I mean, in Heir to the Empire, like he kind of makes his final appearance, like
Yeah,
right at the beginning of the book, and he's like, "Well, I've done my duty. I'm off," and that's the
yeah.
last you see of Kenobi. As far as I know, he might show up later, but so it puts you in the head of Kenobi, and I think I can't remember the characters' names. I remember Plug Eye, but I can't remember the other names because it's been so long since I've read. Like I know who did what,
Orrin
and
Hatch.
yeah,
Um,
he's the one in charge
uh,
of the commune, right?
yeah. Well, he was the one in charge of the called the Farmers Defense or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and I got quite a bit
The
to
one
say about.
protecting against the Tuscan Raiders. Yeah.
Yeah, now let's talk about that for a second. The whole thing. You find out at the end. This is a spoiler alert, by the way. You find out at the end that he's kind of playing both sides to keep a racket
Hmm.
going. And I I don't know. I got the impression because technically, if you think about it, the whole Clone Wars, Palpatine was playing both sides. Like he
Yeah.
was controlling both. He had his pawn, Count Dooku, and General Grievous, and eventually Anakin.
Yeah.
And he's controlling the Republic. He's sending the armies to fight the Separatists and stuff like that. So, like, I part of me thought they were trying to make that connection, and then it kind of like a larger theme. So, if there's a big conflict, don't be surprised if there's someone who has their hands in
Yeah.
both sides, if you know what I mean. Do you pick that up as well?
Yeah. I would have preferred Hatch. I think his name was Orrin Hatch. I know his first name is Orrin. Um, but I would have preferred Orin to be more of an ambiguous character rather than at the end just being sort of like completely evil. Um, but like I think it was fine. I think the way they dealt with his fate was really interesting, actually, too. Um, being forced to basically become a Tuscan Raider, for the rest of his life. That was cool. Um, but I mean, I liked Annalene. I do find it a little bit dark that Obi-Wan helps her move to Alderaan.
Whoops.
It's like just don't stay there for 20 years, you know.
Yeah,
Just
just
move in the next few years, move out. But
yeah,
I thought
it's
that was funny.
yeah. Don't put any roots down there because there's going to be a
Bad,
big detachment.
bad real estate. Yep.
Yeah.
No, but the whole Annalene and Obi-Wan Kenobi sort of kind of one way romance, kind of not, was interesting too. Go ahead, you're gonna say?
Well, this kind of ties into how I explained Obi-Wan earlier because it kind of looks like if he wanted to, you have a single mom there who kind of needs
Mhm.
help, and there's some chemistry between her and Kenobi.
Yeah.
And Kenobi kind of acknowledges he has the option if he wants. Okay, the Jedi thing failed. I'll just live the rest of my life as a family man, and he'd probably not even get noticed either. He'd probably be under the radar. Um, but the thing is, he knows he has a mission to do, and his life he has to still be a Jedi in that role. He knows it's going to be different. It's not the days where he's in the temple and he'll be sent on missions by the council and stuff like that. No, no, no. It's different. He's an exile now. He's an outlaw, but he knows his mission as a Jedi is as important, if not even
Mhm.
more important than it was in the days of the, let's say, the temple until pre pre assault on the temple. From
Yeah.
so he knows that his job as a Jedi is even more important than it was in the days of the Clone Wars and the days of etc.
Mhm.
of back then. It's just completely different. He has to do his stuff as an outlaw.
Mhm.
He's still doing his stuff that Yoda wants him to do. So I think
Mhm.
that showed a lot. It played to his character. That like I felt I knew the same Obi-Wan from the movies, but
Mhm.
yeah, they introduce new stuff. But it's the same Obi-Wan. I don't think they got him wrong at all.
Did you ever watch the Kenobi Disney Plus series or no?
Yes, I did.
What were your thoughts on that one compared to this?
Uh, well, of course, it's on a parallel timeline, right? It's
Yeah.
and I'm trying to think because it's been a while since I've seen it. I watched it when it came out. I thought the story was kind of corny. That the fact
Hmm.
that he engages uh Darth Vader twice in that. He engages him twice.
Are they on
Um
Tatooine when they do that?
have you not seen it?
No, I've not seen it. No, I don't care
Oh,
about spoilers.
yeah, he has two uh d- duels with Darth Vader. One
Yeah.
is, I don't think it's on Tatooine. It's on some other planet. And then he has a thing where he has and he gets his backside handed to him in that battle.
Hmm.
And then in the final episode, they have a duel, this big duel on like this deserted planet,
Hmm.
and like his mask is like half falling off, and there's
I've
that
seen
famous
scenes
line,
from that one. Yeah.
yeah, where
Yeah.
he's like, I killed Anakin Skywalker, and it's kind
Yeah.
of like, oh yeah. So like I thought that was kind of corny that they put him like he has two duels with Darth Vader, because I like to think when they meet on the Death Star, they have not seen each other since Mustafar. Like that's
I
what I
would have
kind of,
liked that too. Yeah.
yeah, but instead they had these two encounters. So it's kind of like it makes no sense. It makes a lot more sense in this where they're kind of off. But okay, I'm thinking about it a bit more here. I
Hmm.
He talks to a Jedi, because in the first episode of that, he talks to another Jedi who's hiding out on Tatooine. He's like, and he tells him like, keep a low profile, go throw away your lightsaber. He says, go into the middle of the desert and bury your lightsaber. He's like, the time of the Jedi is over. But at the same time, he knows he's talking to Owen Lars. He's like, remember, you told me I get to train him in a few years. Um, and of course, Owen Lars is
Is
a
that the
key.
one where it goes like like you trained his father? Is that the one?
Uh, Something like that.
The line. Yeah. That became a meme. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that one, I think you might actually like that more based on the fact that you're more into things that are like across the galaxy, like because he has to go to Alderaan. I don't know if he goes to Alderaan, but he does
He has to rescue Princess Leia. Yeah.
yeah, because she's been kidnapped and on
I'll
Alderaan
say
and taken
this.
to.
The issue I have with what the little I know about the Kenobi movies or TV show series and all that is that it's a lot of fan service. So of course he has to fight Darth Vader and all that stuff. And that's part of what I do appreciate about the Kenobi book, this pre Disney canon book, is that there's not just this epic fight. It's just that. So I appreciate that as a Kenobi book. It's just not what I generally look for in a Star Wars book, if that makes sense.
So, like, my two favorite Star Wars books are Heir to the Empire and Plagueis. So,
Okay.
and I and like we had a top 10 of yours where you have your
Mhm.
top 10, and those two books are in it. But are you
Mhm.
more of a kind of guy who likes the long series instead of the standalones, or
Um, It depends. So the reason I never opted to read the Kenobi book was that Kenobi was never a favorite character of mine. So I didn't much care about a small journey that he would have, a relatively quote small journey he would have. So I knew that it was like I knew, for instance, that Darth Vader wasn't going to be in it. Um, he wasn't going to be traveling around. He's just going to be basically stuck on Tatooine and all that sort of stuff. I was like, okay, it just doesn't interest me much. Maybe if it had some interactions with Luke, because Luke is a favorite character of mine, I would have cared more. Um, but it's just not the type of Star Wars book that I would generally go to. A personal story about a character who I think is sort of average. Um, Say if it was Bo Fett's one of my favorite characters, or a Thrawn book. Like the only Disney canon book I've ever read is the Thrawn stuff. You know, um, and so like that is yeah, right there. Yep.
I got these for a
And
Christmas present. So
I didn't even read both of them, only one. So um, like the uh, the characters I care more about. So like Anakin Solo, um, Jason and Jaina Solo, Luke Skywalker, even Han Solo, like the Han Solo adventures I was a kid, uh, Grand Admiral Thrawn, etc. Like those characters I care about. Like Darth Bane. Like I read that. I mean, now some of these are obviously they are galaxy spanning, but like if there was a personal journey type of any of these characters, I would definitely be more inclined to read it. But that being said, it was a good book. Don't think I'm not trying to short. I actually think it is a good book. It's just part of it is if you like Obi-Wan Kenobi as a character, definitely if you like Kenobi more than I do as a character, you will like the book a lot. I'd say. Does that make sense?
yeah, no, that does make sense. Yeah, because yeah, if you're not a fan of the character, you're probably not going to like the story unless it's like elite story, which I suppose could happen. You know, there are good writers out there.
Uh-huh.
I'm
Well,
curious.
and it's not a bad story. It is a good one. I do think it's a good story. It's just that it's difficult for me to get super excited about it because it's not about a character that I generally care about.
I'm curious. The author, John Jackson Miller, he's written a few Star Wars books. Have you ever
I,
read anything by him?
I think I have. I probably have. I'd have to look at the books that he's done. John Jackson Miller. Let me see. Let me look at
Yeah,
his books. Star Wars. He's done. Oh, he's done Star Wars: A New Dawn. I don't know that one. I think that's actually canon.
he
It
did the
looks like
Lost
Disney canon.
he did the Lost Tribe of the Sith collected stories.
Oh wait, let me see. I only see two Star Wars books on his Wikipedia page. Kenobi and a Disney canon one. Um, so I don't know about any others.
He did
Oh wait,
one
wait.
called oh
He's got a Knight Errant comic series, but I never read that.
okay.
He did some other comic stuff.
Yeah, so like apparently Knight Errant is a good book. Mind you, it's well the reason that I picked this book I
Hmm.
wanted to pick this book and not something else is because there's that YouTuber I told you about who's big into sci-fi books, Jonathan Cohn.
I follow him.
That,
Yeah, I follow him. Yeah.
and he says like there's one time he did his favorite books for the legends, the old canon, and this was his favorite book. So I'm like, oh, it's probably got to be pretty good then. So that's why I'm like, Father James, you want to do the review on
Yeah.
this? That's why I decided to pick it. And yeah, no, I'm happy I
Just
reviewed this book.
yeah. So just to be unambiguous, my view of the book is this: objectively, it is a solid, good book. If you at all like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and if you are interested in just reading Star Wars books, I highly recommend it. If you are like me and you do not know why so many people are obsessed with Obi-Wan Kenobi. And if you have a little bit of spite in you, so out of spite, you're like inclined to not like something that everybody else likes, then you'll still read it and enjoy it, but it might take a bit longer.
Okay,
That's how
so
I see it.
would you have, and this seems unrelated, but it's related. W- would you have preferred if the prequels would not have been made?
Definitely not the way that they were, but no, definitely not. No, I would have. I would love to have had the prequels. I would love to have a real sequel trilogy, not the Disney stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, like Heir of the Empire. Yeah, um, yeah, because when George Lucas talked about the prequels in the '80s and the early '90s, prior to when they were made,
Mhm.
he knew that it was always going to be three main characters. It's going to be Anakin, it's going to be Obi-Wan, and Mrs. Anakin. That's how he said it. He didn't have a name back then, or he possibly he did. He just didn't share it.
Mhm.
And obviously that turns out to be Padme. So he of the three main characters that are in the trilogy, one of them is Obi-Wan, and he gets just as much time as Anakin and Padme does. Like
Yeah.
he's in
Yeah.
there, he gets more time than anyone apart from those two. Um,
Mm.
because he's like it's kind of like a friendship that goes very bad, obviously, right? You know, they
Yeah. Yeah.
were
Yeah.
neck and neck, and because
Brothers.
why do you like Qui-Gon better than Obi-Wan? That's a
I like his. I like his philosophy. I like that he's a bit more of a rogue against Jedi Council. Uh, like looking at the sort of the galactic political situation, I I have the sense that Obi-Wan Kenobi more than knew more than you like he knew a lot
are you talking
about
about
the
Obi-Wan or
political
Qui-Gon?
Obi-Wan right now. Obi-Wan
Okay.
knew a lot of what was going on and just sort of turned a blind eye to it. Um, and just was sort of constantly deferring these issues, like whether it be with Anakin or whether it be with the Jedi Council, which I do believe is kind of corrupt at that point. Like I don't I I think that both the Republic and the Council were corrupt. So I do like the fact that Qui Gon was pushing against that sort of stuff, and was seen as a bit of uh, a problem because of that.
Well, yeah, no, and that's true. And for those who watch this, I think the big thing is to read the book Plagueis, because is it Plagueis or
Hmm.
Plagueis? I,
Plagueis, because that's how he pronounces it in the Revenge of the Sith.
oh yeah, I guess you're right. So I think Plagueis is the book to read on this, because it goes into a lot of what Count Dooku was getting out. Because I think it sounds like Count Dooku had similar grievances uh, to Qui Gon Jinn, except Count Dooku took it a step further and actually left the Order. He knew they couldn't. He knew they were past the point of no return. Um, and so that's why you got
He
to read Plague with everyone.
Plagueis is a great book. It's one of my favorites, definitely.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
don't remember where I put it in my list, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was top three. It was definitely up there. I can't remember what I have. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
but yeah, no, Dooku is another favorite of mine. Like Dooku is my probably my favorite villain in the movies. I would say probably my favorite villain because he's
Uh,
very much the sympathetic um, guy who's like, okay, you definitely see where he's coming from. You know.
well, and he, according to Ben Shapiro, I'm not like a Ben Shapiro fanboy or anything like that, but he said something that I found interesting, that Count Dooku is kind of like the like the pleasant surprise of of the
Yeah.
pre. He's a very good character. He's not as appreciated as he should be, and he's kind of like the kind of guy you need. And it's pretty
Yeah.
impressive that a guy as sharp as Count Dooku could be manipulated by Palpatine. That just shows you how sinister Palpatine was. And like it only comes in at the very end when Anakin's holding the lightsaber to his throat, and um, he kind of looks
Yeah.
over. He's like, "Oh, I've been played. Oh well." And then you know he's dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, he is certainly a great character, and like I kind of like the fact that he kind of exposes how Obi-Wan's not invincible, like because he
Hmm.
basically has his way with Obi-Wan twice. Like Obi-Wan loses twice against Count Dooku, uh,
Yeah.
and
I do need to correct something I said earlier. So, like, I did say that Dooku is my favorite, but I think he's about tied, honestly, maybe even a little bit under Palpatine. Palpatine is just such a good evil character. He's just purely evil, and I love that. Like,
yeah, and I kind
he's
of like how the
cartoonishly villain.
well. Let me ask you something about Palpatine. I'm trying to put myself in his head.
Mhm.
Why? Why do you because okay, the climax of Revenge of the Sith, where all the Jedi get killed, is the attack on the temple and Order 66, right? That's when
Okay.
all the Jedi except for a couple get killed, right?
Mhm.
Why didn't he do that earlier? Uh, that's what I'm saying. How come he didn't do that earlier?
He needed an excuse to do it. And the attack on his life is what happened, right? So when Mace Windu attacked him, that's when he was able to say, "Hey, look, the Jedi literally tried to kill me." Now, if it were so, think of it like this. Think of like you've got the bishops here, right? Or let's say in the Church of England, because it's an established church, right, in England, right? Um,
Yeah.
let's say King Charles III is trying to sort of continually foment more hatred for the church and try to disestablish it or something like that. Well, he's going to sort of have to develop things to where there's more ism between the church and the state, right?
Yeah, you
So
got to wait for
then
the
it culminates in some, yeah, then it culminates in some sort of big thing. In the case of the Star Wars, it's the attempted killing of Palpatine when Palpatine reveals to Anakin that he's a Sith, you know. So like all that works, and then um, he's like, "Hey, look, they tried to kill me, and we've already been past 10 years how they keep trying to do stuff. So now we gotta just wipe them out."
And do you think that had anything to do with Anakin then? Because like that's something else. Like he says at the end of Phantom Menace, he's like, "Oh, well, watch your career with great interest." And you can tell in the prequels, he's very close with the Chancellor, and he says in
Yeah,
Revenge of the Sith, it's like he's been there for me ever since I was a kid,
yep.
since he came there from Tatooine. Um, so, like, at what point do you think Palpatine seriously considered bringing Anakin on as a Sith?
I think it was I think it was episode one. I think there was a line there in episode one, if I recall correctly. Um, because I think it's at the death of Maul. He says something to the effect of like, "I found one younger and wiser," or something, or stronger, or something like that. I think it's been a while since I've seen episode one, but yeah, I think the plan was always since episode one to Anakin on the path to the dark side to then turn him into his apprentice, which is why he had other apprentices before, between that time, of course, like Dooku and
Count
such, but they were
Dooku.
just sort of convenient for him. But I think it was sort of either way, it didn't really matter to him because his point in telling Anakin In fact, I think he was expecting Anakin to tell the others. I think that was the plan when he told him he was a Sith, right? Um,
Yeah.
and then Anakin tells, Samuel L. Jackson, Mace Windu, there's not a, there, I almost actually said the word. I've had it with these on this plane. I'm not going to say it.
Hello, other
Uh,
Paul.
oh, the death of Dooku. That's what it was. After the death of Dooku. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, definitely after the Dooku then. Um, uh, anyway, the point being that, like, you see these things working out, and uh, he wants Anakin to tell the various Jedi and stuff that, hey, I think he's a Sith, and then have that thing happen, and then he has to make a decision. I don't
Yeah.
think that. Good.
Yeah, no, that's clever. Like I think he kind of he kind of made things work. So eventually he's like, "Look, there's two sides, mine and theirs, and you have to pick one.
Yeah.
It's gonna end. w- One side is going down badly. Pick pick one, because And I
Yeah.
don't know if
I,
you've ever
I
read
think
the
that. Good.
well, I don't know if you've ever read the novelization of episode 3.
I was actually about to bring that up. It probably answers these questions in the novelization. I've not read the novelization.
Well, it kind of clears up a couple loose ends, because remember he takes the clone trooper infantry to the temple, and that's how they're able to get in the temple. Like all the doors were locked because the Jedi knew there was going to be an attack on the temple, right? So like all the doors are locked, and then they're like, "Oh, it's Anakin, let him in," because they didn't know he had turned to the dark side. And then they see all the clone troopers. It's like, Anakin, what's with all the clone troopers? And Shakti went to meditate because she felt a huge disturbance in the Force. Do
Mhm.
you know what happened? Then he ignites his lightsaber like through her skull. He's like, "You have no idea," and then and then the
Yeah.
the temple massacre happens. But no, it's kind of interesting how they do the thing with they they go into detail about the Mace Windu fight, but I don't think there's anything that is not in the movie though. Um, like he there's a bit more dialogue. Um, like right
Plagueis
before he
talks about it though.
what? Sorry.
Plagueis talks about it because Plagueis goes all the way up to episode 3.
Oh,
Plagueis
really?
goes from like, yeah, it goes from um, decades before episode 1 to it goes literally to like the night uh, before his meeting with Anakin, where he tells him the tragedy of Darth Plagueis. Because the ending of that spoiler for Plagueis is that he is the one who kills Plagueis, right? Remember, he's
Yeah.
intoxicated, celebrating like what they've done and everything, and uh, Darth Sidious is like, "Okay, now it's time to kill you." And he zaps
Surprise,
him.
surprise! It's by lightning.
Yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, this is a bit far, obviously, from Kenobi. But yeah, no,
yeah.
like Kenobi is a good book. It's a solid book. I'll say that. It just the beginning is a bit slow. That's the biggest complaint I have about it. And well, the other one I would say is I'd love to have seen a bit more Luke in it. Even baby Luke would have been good.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is like a very isolated story. It's nothing really
Yeah.
to do with Luke or the Lars family. It's nothing to do with the Empire or the fading
Mhm.
Republic or anything like that. It's completely an Obi-Wan story. Um, and like
They
you
do
said,
some things. Go ahead. Well, let me say it real quick. They do some things that I think are really cool and very smart. So, um, the daughter of Annalene finds out that Obi-Wan's last name or Ben's last name is Kenobi, and she like tells the whole town, "Oh, his last name is Kenobi. His last name is Kenobi," because he's this interesting stranger figure and everything. And then you find out that Kenobi is actually a really common name. It's like Smith, because there's like half a dozen other Kenobis. Like, oh, is he related to that Kenobi, or is he related to that Kenobi? And so, like, I love how they know his last name, because in the original series, the original trilogy, you know his last name. Ben Kenobi is is what he goes by, but like, it's just shown and indicated that it's not a very, or it's a very common name. Um, and then the other thing I like is uh, just they do all sorts of things like that, like world building with like the crate dragons and the banthas, and especially the Tusken Raiders. I really loved how they dug into the lore a bit of who Tusken Raiders are, and their culture and things like that. That was the most fascinating part to me by far.
Yeah, and it explained where the term Tusken Raider came from, right?
I'm trying to remember. I don't remember exactly what
Well,
did it say about that.
they said in like the early days of people coming there, there was a Fort Tusken, and it got raided by the Sand People, and so they got the name Tusken Raiders, and that kind
Oh,
of
okay.
stuck. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I also loved sort of learning a bit of the religious history of the Tusken Raiders too, because like they look at the twin sons as gods, kind of, but like one is the stronger brother and the other is the weaker brother, and there's just this constant, like, their whole culture is centered on the idea of like survive today and don't worry about anything else.
there's a question for you, Father James.
They did. Um, and you find out, like, Obi-Wan kind of finds out. I don't think they clarify it perfectly, but like you get the sense that he's like, oh, Anakin probably killed those Tusken Raiders, because you hear about that every now and then in the story.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, kind of flashes back. Yeah,
well, not flashbacks, but like in the sense of like they talk about,
references it. Yeah.
yeah. And he's like, I wonder. And it talks about, I had heard about this, but I didn't know much about it. But there was a Jedi who apparently lived as a Tusken Raider for a few years, um, which was interesting. But like I'd heard about that before, but I didn't ever really look into it. But that is a story. I think it's in the comics.
Hmm. Oh, I didn't know that one. That'd be interesting to read. Hey,
Mhm.
the other Paul, have you ever read any Star Wars books? I'm just curious, even if it's only a couple, because yeah, I'd be interested. What? So if you had to give this a number rating out of 10, you've got Heir to the Empire and Plagueis are 10. One would be, I don't know, what's your least favorite hands down Star Wars book?
My least favorite quote Legends one
Yeah.
is like the
Oh, Father James, you are frozen.
it's called, or Young Jedi Prince or whatever. That's
Oh, okay.
I'm back. You see me?
Yeah, yeah. So it's the Jedi Prince, or
Yeah, the Jedi Prince series, which is trash, objectively trash. No one likes it. Um,
oh, that
uh,
bad.
it's like one. Yeah, yeah, it's really it's written for like 8-year-old,
Okay, so
maybe 10-year-olds.
n- now we've got your scale. Where does this fit on the scale?
I would put it at probably now if five. Okay, I'm not going to do a 1 to 10 because that gets very easily sort of misunderstood. I'm
Hmm.
going to do a 1 through 5 if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
On a scale of 1 to 5, I would put it at a 3.5.
Okay.
So slightly above average. But that's only because I generally just don't care about Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's why. Again, I don't hate him. I've just never found him interesting as a character, except for maybe, honestly, I actually liked him best like Alec Guinness. Maybe that's part of it because I Alec Guinness is the first Obi-Wan to me, so like I always think of Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan. Maybe that's why. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he didn't last long as Alec Guinness. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and he's been like replaced with Ewan McGregor because he's in 3 full movies, whereas Alec Guinness is like half a movie. Um,
Well, he's in three technically still too. He's in
yeah,
he's in
he's Force Ghost in 2 of them. Yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, I'd probably put this slightly higher. I'd probably put a 4 if we're doing the 5 scale. Because like it confirmed the stuff I knew about Obi-Wan, like why he kind of foregoes the potential, of settling down with the single mom, and
Yeah.
sticks to his duty. And I kind of like that about that's the thing I find admirable about him.
No,
He's
yeah. There's a lot
very
I like
loyal.
about him.
Yeah, and again, that's why Yoda could say at Revenge of the Sith, "I've got training for you while you're in exile," because he knew he
Yeah.
would do it, because that's Obi-Wan. So, all right, I'm about done everything I need to say about this book. We've given our ranks, and yeah, I think it was one of the last books of the Legends era.
Yeah,
I
there's one
agree.
called like Smuggler's Gambit or something like that. It's one with a picture of Han Solo and Chewbacca and uh, Lando Calrissian. I think that was the last one. I can't remember what it was called though. I'm gonna look it up. Last published. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Um. No, that's all. Really, I don't know if it's the last, but I it's either the last or second or third last. It's very toward the end. And I think that was the time when, because I think Disney acquired it in 2012. And for a while, I think they contemplated going on with the old canon, but they're like, well, we spent $4 billion. We want to do our own thing. So let's just demote that one to fan fiction, and we'll do our own. And it's kind of admirable in a certain way what they're trying to do, because they're publishing books, but they have their their TV shows that are like tied in with their books. I guess it's similar to what they're doing with Marvel, but at the same
Hmm.
time, that gets annoying because you have to consume all of it. Like for example, in the M- Mandalorian, if you see the end of the second season, it looked like the end of Grogu. He's off on his own thing now.
Yeah.
But all of
Hmm.
a sudden, Grogu's back, and apparently, to know what happens, you had to watch the Book of Boba Fett, and I haven't watched it. I think it's a Book of Boba Fett, where they kind of
Hmm.
answer what happened with Grogu, and now why he's back front and center. He's back because everyone liked him, but what's
Yeah.
the technicality in the story that brought him back? And I
Yeah.
had someone explain it to me, and I'm like, I'm not going to go and watch uh, a whole series just to get an answer. Like I like the Mandalorian, but I don't like a lot of the other. Like the Kenobi show was not great. Uh, as Paul pointed out in the diversity hierarchy. Yeah, that's true. Uh,
Um, the last one apparently was Maul Lockdown. That was the last pre-Disney canon story.
do you read that one?
I did not. Some of these I've never even heard of. I never knew about this one called Razor's Edge, for instance, about Princess Leia, like right before Empire Strikes Back or something like that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't
There are
think
a
there's
few.
a whole lot of books between A New Hope and
The Empire.
yeah, and Empire. I don't think there's a whole lot of books because I think they don't know a whole lot of backstory then, and half the fun is kind of working with the backstory, you know. Um,
Yeah, a lot of Zon ones like there are some Zon ones that'll do stuff like that. So, for instance,
oh, Outbound Flight,
uh,
right?
well, Outbound Flight is actually it's prequel era because it's got Anakin and Obi-Wan in it. The one I was thinking of was the one with that he did with Mara Jade. I can't remember what it's called, but there's one where she about her training by the Emperor and stuff like that. Her being trained by the Emperor. And there are other ones that are like that that are sort of around that era. I mean, obviously, Shadows of the Empire comes out. That starts technically before, like right before Empire Strikes Back, but then ends like right before Return of the Jedi. So there are a few different ones like that.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of like a parallel storyline that kind of occasionally intersects with the
Yeah.
movies. Like like I think Dash Rendar is in like the final battle where they blow up the Death Star. Like he had another mission that was like not contradictory to what Luke was doing, but or to what the X-wings were doing. But uh, yeah, so part of me wants to, well, yeah, so in terms of Star Wars books, I'll tell you the next Star Wars book I'm going to read. The next Legends book. It's not going to be the next book I read, but the next Legend book.
Hmm.
You've read this one?
Let me see it. Put it up again. Sorry, I was looking at a different thing.
Revan.
Oh, the Revan one. I've not read the Revan one.
Because Coder was such a good
I
game.
do.
Coder was what that I'd say that's my favorite Star Wars game of all time. In fact, I was thinking of in fact we could invite the other Paul for this, doing our top 5 Star Wars games.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, and like
You interested in that?
oh yeah, I'd totally be up for it. Like we could do it like we did with the movies. I could you guys
Yeah.
could tell me in advance, and I'll just put the PowerPoint. We'll do fifth, 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 fourth, 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 and Kotor is pretty high on my list. I'll just say that
Oh
much.
yeah, KOTOR is definitely high on my list as well, and definitely be in the top five. I'm thinking of what that would be right now, but Paul, comment if you are interested in doing this. If you're still listening. Uh,
The other Paul, would you like to do a top 5 Star Wars games list with Father James and I? All right, and I'll send him a clip of this if he doesn't see it.
yeah.
Because yeah, no, because I'd love to do that because like I don't even think I've ever talked about games. I'm not a huge gamer, but I dabble. I prefer
Mhm.
to sit down and read a good book than play a game. What are you reading these days? Either fiction or nonfiction.
I'm reading about five different books right now. So I finished Kenobi. I'm reading That Hideous Strength by C.S. Lewis.
Hmm.
Um, I am reading The Case for Christian Nationalism by Stephen Wolfe. I'm not liking it so far, and
I have no interest in that one.
I would broadly consider myself a Christian nationalist, but I would disagree with him on a variety of ways on how that would work out. Let's see. I'm reading a book about the Middle Ages from the eyes of C.S. Lewis, and I'm reading a book. Actually, it's on my Audible. This one. Let me see. The Audible one is. It's going to take a second to load up. I'm reading. Let's see. I haven't read this one in a while, so I don't know. Let me see. Or did I finish it? Uh, yeah, I'm kind of dabbling in one called Poland. It's about Poland, my Polish heritage. So yeah.
Really? Are you sure? Are you sure the book Poland is about Poland? Uh-oh. I mean, I thought it was about Tanzania, but oh well, call me.
Uh,
Sorry, had to do
Shocker,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
This is
like,
my preliminary list, by the way, of my top five. It'll probably change, but these are the top five I think of when I think of my favorites.
hmm. So I'm curious. You're Polish booked. How far does that go back? I mean,
Goes
is it
back
like a history
to
book?
it's a history book. It goes back to like the either 800s or 1100s. I can't remember right now, but around that time.
Is
Um,
is Saint
and
Stanislaus
goes
in it?
into Saint who?
Stanislaus.
Yes, as I recall, yes. Just gotten into the beginning of it, so
Okay. Yeah, no, th- that would be interesting because as you know, I try to read as many primary chronicles as I can. I don't know how many there are about Poland out there. I know I got several for Russia. There's the primary Chronicle of Novgorod, a couple other chronicles, and it kind of overlap. Sometimes it kind of overlaps with Poland, because of some friction or some trade going on.
yeah.
There's some guy, but like, yeah, no, that's the thing that th- th- that's the thing about sticking to primary sources. There's some places that have barely anything. Like, for
Mhm,
example, there's a chronicle about the Orkney Islands from the year about 1000, and
mhm.
that is the only medieval chronicle that's main center of base is in the Orkney Islands. For
Hmm.
England and France, there are hundreds. For the Orkney Islands, there's only that one. And by the way, there's something interesting about the Orkney Islands. It's it's only the second place I know of. Like they're a cluster of islands just north of Scotland, as you probably know. It's
Mhm.
only the second place I know of that was converted to Christianity by force. Like it was converted
Yeah, there
at
are
the
not
point.
that many.
Yeah, that's true. There's not that many. Of course, if you just go online, everyone's like, "Oh, North and South America were converted by the sword. Eastern Europe, Central Europe." Like those people know absolutely nothing. But
Yeah.
but yeah, the so far the only two places that were converted at the point of a sword under threat of conversion or death was Saxony by Charlemagne and the Orkney Islands. That's the only two
Huh.
places I have found where it's been converted by the sword, you can say.
Uh,
But pretty much everywhere else, it's through preaching.
yeah. Preaching and conviction of sin and repentance and desire to join the kingdom of God.
Well, it's ironic. I got in a discussion on Twitter with a Muslim today. He was picking on a Mexican friend of mine. He's like, "Oh, how
Mhm,
did your ancestors become Catholic?" Obviously, and then I'm like, "Through Our Lady of Guadalupe, and
mhm.
Franciscan and Jesuit missionaries." And they're like, "And what happened if they didn't convert?" I'm like, "They'd be left alone." And I told him that in the mid 1700s, when Junipero Serra comes, there are still pagan tribes there.
Mhm,
Like, and at that time, Spain had controlled them for almost 300 years. So
mhm.
if they wanted to kill people who didn't convert, that was their chance. But no, they just had to wait until they had a missionary who was able to convert them. This tribe was a tough nut to crack, and even Junipero Serra only converted about half of them. Um, and it's not like this tribe was like a tribe of Spartans who you didn't want to mess with. They were just kind of a farming tribe who kept to themselves.
Yeah,
So yeah, so yeah, so a lot of people don't read the history and just try to say that yeah, it was all forced conversion. Yeah,
it's
they have
all Jack Chick and mythicist memes, basically, that
yeah,
inform them.
and sadly, I'd like to think better of them, but sadly, the Muslims have fallen into like pretty much everywhere that's Christian's been converted by force.
Yep.
And and Jews think that too, but sadly, I kind of expected that to happen. Like I got in a discussion with a Jew, and he basically said North and South America were converted by force, and I'm like, example, please. I want just cite me a source, a primary source that says yeah. And of course,
That
he didn't,
indicates.
and I'm like, I can cite counter examples, you know. Now it's true that conquistadors did persecute the natives. That's true, but
Mhm.
persecute and forced conversion aren't the same thing.
They're
Um,
not. No.
they they persecute them, and a lot of times the church stood up for them. That's what Las Casas did. He wrote to the Pope, and then the Pope comes down with an encyclical saying you can't harm the natives, even if they don't convert. They're not to be robbed of
Mhm.
their property or anything like that. So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, no one actually does the research. They just repeat what they've always been taught. So, um, all right, we're just past the 1 hour mark. You got any final comments on the book? I think we wrapped it up, but if you got any final comments, now is the chance.
Plug Guy is one of my favorite characters. I was somewhat almost rooting for Orrin Hatch at the very beginning, but I was like, oh, okay, I see where this is going. Is it? I keep saying Orrin Hatch. I feel like that's not his name. Um,
Let me check. I know that that got me confused with Atlas Shrugged because Atlas Shrugged, there's a guy named Orrin Boyle.
Orrin Galt.
Boyle.
That's it. Who's Orrin Hatch? Who's that? I feel like that's someone. Oh, yeah, he was a senator. Okay, Orrin Galt. Um, Orrin Galt is which is another interesting thing because his like Galt is obviously from Atlas Shrugged. So
Yeah, it's Orrin Galt. Yeah.
yeah,
If you read Atlas Shrugged,
unfortunately, I have. Yes, I read
that
it
is such
this
a.
year, I think. Yeah,
Oh, really? Yeah, because
or
I
last
mean,
year, I think.
like that book just goes on and on and on and on and
It's
600,
evil.
600. Yeah, it's totally evil. And it's a thing I don't like in her book. She puts if you've ever read The Fountainhead, it's the same in that book. Uh, she puts sex scenes in her book, and she essentially turns them into consensual rapes. They're like consensual
Yeah,
rapes, essentially. Uh,
yeah.
I guess that was her thing. You know, maybe she was into that. I kind of notice some authors when you read several other books and they have the same pattern of weird
Of things.
sexual thing. They're just putting their own fantasy in their books, you know. Um,
Well, her sex life was not in the least bit orthodox, at all.
yeah, that's true. That's true. She was a very sad person.
And
Like
what's really sad is that she's a hero amongst not just conservatives, but amongst Christian conservatives
really, like who?
in the United States. Like I'm talking about in personal interactions I have with people, like so many, especially of the sort of boomer age, like the boomer generation, really love Atlas Shrugged and really love Ayn Rand. And they try to marry that with Christian principles, and it is just not possible. You
No,
cannot
no,
marry
can't do it. Can't
Ayn
do it.
Rand
You know.
with Christianity. It is not. It explains a lot about the United States today.
Well, like I know, like in terms of Catholic, we have the encyclicals like Rerum Novarum and Quadragesimal Anno, which is a very balanced approach to economics and politics. I think I think the Anglicans have the same uh, approach to it. There was a guy, I can't remember his name. Temple was his last name.
William Temple, Archbishop.
Yeah, I think and he
Uh-huh.
talks a lot about like similar things for the Anglican Church, which is I think pretty
Mhm.
similar to those Catholic encyclicals said, but nothing close to this Randian stuff. So I mean, I think it's maybe an evangelical thing where it's kind of like you know your old hardcore Republican from the South,
Yeah,
libertarian type who's trying to
it's
justify it. So yeah. Oh, have we lost you again, Father? Father James. Father? Father. Uh-oh. We're in trouble here. Father James. I'm going to text you.
I'm back.
Oh, okay. I just texted you. All right. Yeah, is there anything you want to say? Then I'll kill the stream.
Oh, just with gonna finish what I was saying earlier that Galt's speech is explicitly in it. He explicitly speaks about the evil original sin of that belief, and like if you deny original sin, I'm sorry, you just are not facing reality. Like
Yeah, no, that's true. That's
it's just ridiculous, and yeah, so business is always going to be good because people are just fundamentally okay if big bad government doesn't come in. It's like no, corporations are just another form of like corporations are just another form of power, like government, and they can be abused. It just it's just the way it is.
so I guess at the end of the day, if she's bashing original sin through John Galt's speech, you have a choice, evangelical. Are you going to go with this modern atheist, Ayn Rand, or with
Mhm.
Saint Augustine? You take your pick.
Exactly.
I mean, I know there's evangelicals out there that think like pretty much after John the Apostle died, there was
Yeah.
apostasy until their church was born. But
Yeah.
I guess they might do that, but I think most would be sober minded after giving a good Christian analysis of the book, because I don't think any uh, big Protestant names have endorsed Ayn Rand, have they? Like, I don't think Falwell or Robertson uh, endorsed her stuff. But, oh, are you gone again? Father James. Text him. Are you there? We are lagging. All right. Do. Oh no, I guess we've lost Father James. All right. Well, I'm going to kill the stream now. We've had a good discussion. Yeah, no, the book Kenobi. If you've read the book, comment below. Tell us what you thought of the book. And yeah, hope you enjoyed our review. God bless.